All right. All right. All right. Here we are. I'm doing another live dev stream. Uh, I am here. I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit more about my upcoming Fortnite UEFN game. I want to give a little bit more detail about, for anyone who's interested in kind of the overall the gameplay design, map design, and kind of the game philosophy for this map. Um, this is going to be a little bit more technical, I think, than the last one. I'm not going to be doing as much showing off the game. I'm just going to be kind of going over a little bit of, you know, the actual uh, in and outs of the game systems, kind of how the map's going to be designed. And if I have any time, I will possibly even go over kind of some of the workflow for how I achieve what I'm trying to achieve here. So, with no further ado, I am back here. You're going to see, maybe I can do a little bit better job of showing this on the screen. Bringing that down. So you can kind of see the world itself here in the editor. Um, so this is overall the world that I've been designing, the map. Um, as I've showed the last stream, kind of this is the lobby area, how it looks in the editor. I've got all of the in and outs of the class selection set up in the lobby. You got your NPCs that are pretty much just dummies that you can talk to. When you talk to them, you hail them, which will be familiar to anybody who's played old school games, or even some of the more new school games that are kind of going back to that. Like Monsters and Memories, I think does that now, but EverQuest was probably the one that you'd go and you'd hail the NPCs to do anything with them. That's how you get your quests. So that's kind of this is harkening back to that. Obviously, as I've said before, this game was very heavily inspired by EverQuest. I deviated a long time ago in creating the map and decided, the map cannot just be EverQuest, as fun as that would be. So there are differences, many differences at this point, and it's completely its own thing at this point. But obviously, if you're looking here, there's this is an area that is very familiar to people who've played on the Wood Elf area. Um, so that serves as the lobby for now. So as you go in, it's going to look kind of familiar because, as I said, it initially was an idea that was harkened back to EverQuest, but it's now way different. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit more about overall gameplay philosophy. So as some people know, probably if you watched the last stream or read the description, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a game in Fortnite that has not really been done before. I thought to myself, Fortnite UEFN, that is the Unreal Editor in Fortnite, is actually a tremendously powerful tool. With it comes a lot of different tools that really help out a new game developer like myself. I wanted to get into gameplay or creating a game that would be able to utilize some of the existing assets that Fortnite carries with it. So I've been using a lot of them, and it made a lot of sense for me because I don't get a lot of time to sit down and develop. But I noticed that uh, Fortnite was actually a really good opportunity for me to really get my feet wet in game dev. So I recommend it to anybody who's really trying to get into it. So with that said, what I'm trying to do here is unlike anything I've ever seen before in in Fortnite. I really wanted to make a game that was using the Fortnite engine, but totally does not feel like a Fortnite game. And so what I did was initially I abandoned all the original Fortnite systems for shooting, for guns, things like that. Um, all of the UI, I scrapped it, and I wanted to change it to be able to be used in what I'm trying to do here. So initially, that wasn't the plan. The plan was for me to try and find a way to use the weapons that are available to me in UEFN, and um, there really was not. I was not going to be able to kind of do what I wanted to do with just what was available to me without it kind of sucking. So one thing led to another, and I ended up with a full RPG system. Um, Essentially, it's a very simplified MMO type style of RPG stats, but I introduced things that you don't see in Fortnite, which would be like tab targeting. Technically, I use the right now I use the ping button. So if you look at an enemy, wherever you're facing, your local forward will find and cycle through any NPCs that are directly in front of you. Very similar to games like WoW, and stuff like that. So that is the style that I'm going for. So that was one of the first things I was able to start doing when I started building out these custom systems. And I had fun with that because if you ping, or if you ping, but if you target a guard, which all of my NPCs at this point are guards, and I'll be introducing potentially some wildlife, or more likely some NPCs, custom NPCs with graphics and things like that towards the later part of development, when I've got everything pretty much settled in terms of designing out the world, designing out the systems, making sure everything's polished before we go live. Um, so I wanted to make sure that we were um, what I was doing was going to be fun. And so when I introduced the leveling system, so you go in and you eliminate a guard, it and when you eliminate a guard, the guards have levels. That drives the amount of experience you get for yourself, and your experience goes up depending on your level. It can go up quickly. Obviously, if you're fighting lower level targets, you're going to get much less experience. You're not going to level up very fast. But if you fight stuff that's around your level, maybe in I think 10, I think I was kind of the benchmark. 10 uh, enemy guards slain would get you about a level up of your current level, of your current class's level. All of the level arrays, like all of the levels, are for every class that I have, which right now I have 17, and they're all essentially fully fleshed out. Gameplay wise, it's a little bit more. It's like a melding of hero shooter without shooting. It's tab targeting. But you do have abilities, as I kind of showed some of that last dev stream. Um, so I wanted to have that, and so one of the other things that was the original idea for this game was I wanted to make a roguelike. Um, and that was my first thought, because I played a few roguelikes on Fortnite before, and I thought, man, that's really neat what they've done. But they all seem kind of a little bit samey. They all seem like they're very Fortnite based. There's very little going outside of the box, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to challenge myself to go outside of the box, and so I did. I created all these RPG stat systems, and then of course that led to an inventory system, and inventory system led to loot, of course, and then that led to every class has their own inventory. Every class has their own inventory and their own gear that you can equip. So if you play as one class, uh, you can go out, you can level up, you start at level 1, you get better, you go get gear, from killing or from finding treasure chests, and then you of course, that's how you become stronger on that class, but I wanted you to be able to experience more of it. So the roguelike, systems that I developed, uh, introduced lots of, uh, carryover universal, buffs, let's call them. Not the same as my buff system, which is, you know, literally buffs that you would get in an MMO game. Um, so you go around and you kill guards and you get experience, you get a level up. If you get a level up on a class, you get a skill point. So that was my point. So you would you get the skill point and then you can spend those skill points on various different upgrades that'll be permanent upgrades for your character. And so that was kind of where I was going with that. Along with that, if you kill a guard, they can potentially drop a temporary token upgrade. Um, Along with that, they can also spawn a treasure chest, like a loot bag that you can loot from them, and that'll randomly generate an item for you depending on your class or depending on your race, not race, your level. I don't have races in the game yet. Um, I'm not sure if that's something that's in scope of any early release. If I could, I would fully, replace the Fortnite character uh, with races and have armor, appear on the characters, and but that's getting kind of a little bit out of scope for, certainly for version 1. All right. So with that said, you've got your universal roguelite systems, and you've got your, temporary roguelike systems. So if you have a temporary buff that you've looted from a guard, picked up from the guard that spawned after they were eliminated, then that will temporarily increase your, let's say, health or your health regen, or giving you, vampirism, or give you critical hits. So that's one thing that I added too, critical hit systems. And so anyway, that's enough about that system. I ended up having to build kind of a, let's see what I call stat leveling system. That was my first system that I created. Now it's a verse device, that handles all of it. So I've kind of got a mishmash of all this stuff that, you know, I can tweak at any point. So once the game is live, once the game is out there, I can go in and I can kind of adjust and tweak things. Like, man, people are really getting high level, for, the health max level, and right now it's at 100. So maybe I need to change that. So, or if I need to change the cost, right now the cost increase per level goes up 1.1, so it goes up 10% of the last cost it was. So if it starts at 100, then the next one will be 110 platinum, which you can get from looting guards or from selling gear in your inventory. Anyway, so I can, this is one of my oldest systems that I created here. Um, and it's just got everything that I needed in here. Food and drink play a part, so I can tweak that at any point if I need to, if I feel like, they're in there. It's not like you're not super beholden to the food and drink system. It is a roguelike system that, most roguelike or many roguelike games have, and old school MMOs have. You need to drink and eat, but it's not something that's going to completely break the game if you don't. Something I'm still tweaking, and I will continue to look at. So anyway, that's the roguelike systems. The other part of the roguelike system came much later, and is something I've developed, but I'm currently implementing now. So what is one of the hallmarks to me for a roguelike game is, endlessly repeatable dungeons. Dungeons that are not the same every time. There's many ways that you could potentially do this in a game, uh, made in Fortnite, but the way I chose to do it this way was the branching paths system. And so what I did was massively expanded my map, and I thought about branching paths everywhere as I was working on expanding the map. I wanted to make it so that if you play, you're not going to go the same way every single time. You may get lucky and go uh, certain ways, certain time. Uh, that may be a faster route to the boss, but it's not going to be the same way every single time. So when you first spawn in, the dungeon will randomize. Everything will randomize. So how I handle that is kind of a cool way. So I've got a path block randomizer device I created. What is it? It's actually a pretty simple verse device, but when you first look at it, but what it does is I've got these groups, right? So in the groups, if I open them up, I drop them down, you can see my index. So the first one, my first path block group, I call it area 1, and that's this area right here. And so when you first come in here, you could go one of two directions. You know, your instincts might be to take you this direction, go through that pathway, go down the hallway, you know, go that way, see what happens. And that's probably changing at some point, that the design of that. But there's also this way you could go. So you could go this way. But as you can see, both paths in the editor are blocked. All this device does is it groups these together. So I've got this path block group. And then inside I have options. So there's a path block option index. And in here I have an index of 2 array elements, 2 options. The first option is the tower door, which is this. The second option is the boulders. Let's call it that. So I've now defined these boulders. I'll go over that in a second. I've now defined these 2 spots where I want to show them to be the directions that you could go. You could sometimes go this way. You can sometimes go that way. How do we handle that? Well, I add a weight to it, probability, depending on, however I want to set each path. Maybe some ways have more treasure chests or something, and so they're more rare to be able to get that way. But for now, everything's a weight of 1, which means it is going to do a random number between these 2, the tower door and the boulders. So it's going to either land on this tower door or the boulders, and whichever path it chooses, it hides. So when you go in, all of the different options that I have here for the path block groups will randomize. Also, when you defeat the dungeon, which I hope you do, and you decide to respawn the dungeon and go in a higher difficulty, that will also randomly pick every single path block group, one of the path blocks. Now, I gave myself further options in this, and in order to do what I really wanted to do was, sometimes it's not just going to be 2 things that need to block. Sometimes there's going to be paths where I really don't want people to end up later in the dungeon and to be able to come back this way. That can be some of my game design choice for that. So in order to do that, I added indexes. So 3 arrays, elements for this. So let's say I don't want people going through this way. And so right now, if it lands on this, that first block, that boulder over there, will be gone. This boulder will be gone. And there's also a mountain. This. Mm, that will be gone. And so if that's gone, then players will have access to be able to get up and down this path, which is kind of cool if it's not there. So in potential, in theory, some people could be playing going a different direction, and then they could uh, get this way if I didn't have this prop set as one of the options for this path. Let's say I want them to go that way. So the game choice there was that if it rolls this way, all of those options are gone, or all those pathways are gone. But if I roll that way, only that coffin or that tombstone door will be removed. So that gives some options. So if I want more than one prop to be gone or on when it goes that path, when it chooses that path, then that's something I now have the choice to be able to do. So I have implemented that in a few ways, and I'm going to continue to review that as I go. So if you haven't seen the editor before, if you're looking these red lines here, those red lines are the barrier devices. They determine where the players cannot go through. They can't see them in game because I've removed the material from them. They cannot see them in game, as well as these green uh, mutator zones. They can't see those in the game either. Those are simply zone lines. So if you've played old school MMOs, you will know that there are zone lines that I need to add one right there. There are zone lines that you cannot that when you go through them, you end up in a different zone and you fight different monsters and things like that. So that was part of this. And the other reason I have zone lines is to limit the amount of NPCs, because as you'll notice, there's just an absolutely tremendous amount of NPCs that I place in this game, and I wanted to kind of limit basically when they were allowed to spawn. And so the way I did that was I made it so if a player walks through a defined uh, NPC mutator zone, which let's just take a quick look at this. So that's the mutator zone for that. So I created the guard manager device, and that guard manager device handles a lot of what spawns when those zone lines are passed through. So for this one, I can define what controlled spawners it has. So in this case, I've got a whole bunch of guard spawners, and like I said before, I use nothing but guard spawners at this point for guards. Um, but anyway, this defines the guards that are to be considered within that zone. And so from there, I've also got other settings, and this is kind of a legacy device that I've made a lot of changes through over the year or 2 years I've been working on this. But some of the important things are I've got level scaling. So the guard, whoever walks through the zone, it'll try and match your player level. There's a variance, and there's min and max levels. So I really don't want players to fight the final boss, for instance, if they're level 1. I feel like they should be higher level if they're fighting the final boss. So if they somehow manage to glitch the game or something and end up spawning the final boss and fighting the final boss, which I hopefully is not possible, they're going to regret it if they're level 1. So I can set that in this. Um, you really can't see it because my face is right there, can you? Oh well. Um, maybe I can. Anyway, I can set that in this. Go from there. In this, you can see a little better now. So I can set that min level, max level. So if you're going through this zone line, it'll find your level. If your level is within this range, it'll find your level with a max variance. So I've added a spawn level variance max. So that means it can spawn your level or up to 2 levels below you or up to 2 levels ahead of you. With max level being the absolute max level that that guard can spawn. That's a very new change I made to this, but I wanted to do that because once I made all of the branching paths, I realized it's going to really suck if you pick the wrong path or you're forced to go down the wrong path and and you're level 5 and you want to go one path just because the game is forcing you to go that path and all of a sudden you're fighting level 15 NPCs. That's just going to not be a fun gameplay for you. Probably something you'd see in MMOs or old school MMOs like EverQuest. Not something that I wanted to have here because I just don't think it fits for the type of game for the modern audience. I think this is a little bit better for what I'm trying to achieve here. I do have some radius padding. I did some earlier play tests, and one of the thing I noticed was that I got a lot of lag. Um, and so some of the things I've been tooling around with, I think it's doing much better. Um, we're not forcing all the guards to spawn it right away when you zone. They'll be essentially turned on, but they're going to be kind of staggered in terms of when they spawn. And a little bit of part of that will be how close you are to the spawner. I don't want them to spawn too far when you're too far away from them. So that'll of course be something that I'll tweak here and there. So I've got a weight system so that enemies can spawn as any of the 16 main classes. Again, the 17th class is something I added that is it's called the Islander. Uh, and it is essentially it- the Fortnite gameplay, the primary Fortnite gameplay, um, which you can play in these systems using your guns, just like you do in regular Fortnite, and fighting these guys. They're going to still fight you with the RPG systems, um, but overall, uh, you know, it's gonna look and feel like Fortnite. So, as I've said before, you can fight guards and kill them, or you can loot chests. So I've got chests that are spawned here, and in order to have uh, chests give out loot, I've got various different things that I've kind of added to this. The main one is the zone loot manager. I have one zone loot manager for every zone, and so that covers where you know that will decide what the chances of getting certain stuff are. That will decide you know that manages what loots, what treasure chests are there, and also this one actually manages the mutator zones. So that's where the mutator zone, the zone lines, that's where these are mastered. This is the source of truth for where guards are spawned. Um, so anytime you go in, anytime you pass, it'll start a timer, which I can set. and that timer will determine when guards can spawn or how long until the zone is turned off. Because we don't want guards to continue to spawn if uh, nobody's in the zone. So the last time somebody passes through one of the zone lines, there's going to be a timer that goes off, and that's reset every time somebody goes through one, and then guards will spawn. Could you abuse that? Yep, you probably could. But right now I have not thought of a better way to do it and to make sure that guards are only spawning who they need to spawn, and it's not killing the memory. Because remember, we have a small memory cap for Fortnite, so we have to keep that in mind the entire time during the gameplay and during the game design. So as you can see, I'm not going to ruin the surprise for everybody, but the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to create just big branching pathways. So let's say you go this way. The first thing you're going to see when you come this way is these three, uh, we'll call them tombstone doorways. Um, and that is the first time the second time you're going to be brought with this chance. So one of these three doorways is going to be gone, and you're going to be able to go through it. And when you do, it takes you to a different path. Um, so there we are. So it'll take you through a different path depending on the randomization. This path happens to lead you directly into the banquet hall. I haven't put all the props out yet for it, but you can see I've started laying the guards down. I've put the guard zone lines down. I put everything like that down. So next, I have just further in the zone. Let's say, let's show you this part here. So I've got that door that you can go that way, and if you go that way, it leads you into this area. And there's a few branching paths you can go, or you can go down this way, and that's leads you into a kind of a long hallway. Not a super exciting hallway. I can probably tweak and finish, make that look even better. I think doesn't look bad. I think it could just look better. Maybe we'll add some fun to it somehow. But and that when you come in here, you're either going to be led through this way or that way. So if you get led this way, you're either going to be led. Well, you're going to be just going straight through here. So this is essentially the main bridge that leads you to the castle, and you're going to end up either going that way to the main castle, or you're going to have to come in through here. And if you come in through here, you can go up here. It's not really going to be beneficial to you to go up here, but you can go check out this tower. Or more likely, what will end up happening is you'll go down this way, and you get spit out right here in this area. And as you can tell, that brought us back to one of the first areas. So that is part of the key parts of this branching path systems, is that sometimes you will be led back to a path that you were blocked off to before, but now you're getting there in a much different way. So you're gonna have to fight through it. Okay, so this part I have not revamped completely yet. This is a work in progress. This area, but it's going to be revamped. It's going to look different. The big part were kind of these areas. So I've been actually, if you're looking right here, these areas have been the biggest time I've been spending trying to get these branching paths going. Um, and I've said, you can either get popped out there, go this way, and there's even more complexity to it. Like if you wanted to, you could sneak past that way. There's a way you can sneak past, and you can go this way, right? So this leads you to this other area. I've got these other towers here. You can end up popping in there, going down there, you know, lots and lots of different variances in the pathway that you can take that your game will roll for you. So I have started doing a little bit of the prop uh, placement, and I've started kind of adding some fun to some of the more dull spots as I've been creating all of this stuff. So I have kind of this capture the flag type setup. So let's just pretend that these vampires and werewolves and whatever else. Let's just pretend that uh they're playing capture the flag. So anyway, all right. So then this is my whole area. So the whole area is for you to explore. Ultimately, the goal is branch the paths, but eventually lead them to the final boss. There's even paths that you can take that you don't see, that don't seem obvious. Like there is a basement area, and that can branch down to a really long hallway, like a really long staircase. Kind of reminds me of Mario, the Mario 64 game that leads into a cell, like a a prison area. This is the area I'm very happy because I'm just about done with the design for the big the biggest castle area over there, and pretty soon I'll be going um, and filling this place out and making it more interesting and adding guards and adding chests and things like that. Oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned, but not every chest appears every single time, and um, that's randomized too. So you may be lucky. Some run throughs, you maybe not. So ultimately, like I said, this is you're gonna be led to the boss. I'm trying to decide if I want to add in additional places for there to be a boss. I haven't I haven't made that decision yet. It's something I've been kicking around in my head because that would add a little bit more to the randomness. Because if you're always ending up in the same place, perhaps what I can do is add a various teleporters that send you directly to the boss if you're so lucky. Because I could do that. I could add branching pathways with my random system. I could add branching pathways that, oh, look, that door's open this time. There's a teleporter in there that'll take you directly to the boss. Let's go. Not going to be every time, but it's just another one of those things that I'm really thinking about, and that's already available to me with the systems I have in place. So that's something I'm thinking would be fun to add, but I haven't added it yet. But that is a wrap. I'm not going to go too much more. Um, how I add how I add in each pathway. The first thing, like I said before, was I have to define these obstacles that will block your path, um, and define the paths that you can possibly go. And when those are all defined, then I what I end up doing is I go into a kind of a very tedious uh, creation of the zone. I take I I copy the duplicate the hierarchy for one of my zones, which includes all my chest definitions, all my mutator zones, everything like that. And I copy it all. I rename it the appropriate area, and then I place it all, and that takes some time. So that's kind of where a lot of my time has been spent in this uh, revamping for the game design. And that's it. Just a quick shout out if anybody wants to get more information to take a look at my Discord. I've got the Discord out there. Also, in case anyone is interested, I have a game that's out there for mobile. It's called Parties of Speech. It's not very famous yet. It's not very not a lot of people have got it yet, but the whole point of the game is thinking of it like I was very heavily inspired by games like Mad Libs. So it's a word game, and uh, it's a game that you can play by yourself in a traditional mode, which would be like you have a pen and a paper, so a little book. So you can play it like that, or there's also a duo mode, which I just added. It's a mode where you send a challenge to, or not a challenge, but send a link to a friend, and they can join your game. They play asynchronously, so they can play it play at their own on their own timing. And then when eventually you know it comes together, the words are divvied out, and you fill out yours, they fill out theirs, and at the end you get a fun you know you get a fun little completion of the story. I recently added in screen reading, so once you complete your story, you can actually uh, have your device read it to you, which I found a lot of fun in. You can have fun with that. Then there's also the party mode, which is kind of where the name of the app gets where the app gets its name. Um, and the party mode is something that you can play with up to 11 other people. Right now, it's 12 people max, and think of that as like a Jackbox Games type uh, version of this word game, where you're all in a lobby. You've got timers. You got to answer it quick, and that as long as you have all the all your own devices, you can play them at the same time. I had some fun with that so far. Kind of one of the other big things with the app is that you can create your own stories. So you want a custom story. So like you have stories here, uh, and you wanted to create your own. You can create your own. And guess what? When you create it, other people, if you choose it to be public, other people can vote on it. Um, Other people can share it with others. You can play it immediately. If you create your own stories, they're yours. You get to keep them. I'm not going to make you watch an ad for it. One of the big things for this game was that I wanted to make sure that it was fair, uh, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you nothing if you don't want it to. You can always upgrade to premium and support me, and I would very much appreciate that. But you don't have to. You can play the game free, and at any point, if you wanted to play a random story, you can just hit random story, and it will select a random story for you based on the entire library of stuff, the stories I've created, as well as the stories that anybody else has created that they've marked public. Any of those stories can be selected in the randomization. If you want to pick and choose your story, you can do that too. I just ask that you watch an ad. There's just a very small 30-second ad. But after that, I wanted to be fair, and that story is now available to you in your collection that you can play anytime you want forever. It's unlocked on your account. So hopefully that's a fair uh, way of doing this. There is an online portion of it, so I need to make sure that am able to support it. But I really just want to make a fun game. So that is Parties of Speech. The uh, app link is in the bio for the description for this video. If you want to like and subscribe, you can like and subscribe, or you can join the Discord. Uh, Ask me any questions you like. And thank you for watching. See ya.